for those of you who follow the content that we create regularly, just a few months ago, we did a series on rethinking cancer screening, old way versus new way. You know, you might be saying, well, why in the world are we doing another cancer screening episode? And really, my thinking is to take a totally different approach. Instead of looking at all of the high-flying, tip of the razor, cutting edge kind of latest and greatest things, I felt a conviction to come back and cover the things that, although those are amazing and promising and will likely change cancer screening forever, don't miss the things that are right in front of you that are readily available for most every person, and you don't need a fancy concierge service to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sleep on these basic things, because these relatively widely available, well-established screening modalities save lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about 3 specific cancers: breast, prostate, and colon. And you might say, why do you choose those? Quite simply, it's practical to talk about them. Prostate cancer is the most common cancer in men. Breast cancer is the most common cancer in women. And colon cancer is the number 2 cancer killer of all humans.
Mm-hmm.
And we have great, not perfect, but we have great available, inexpensive screening tests that can save your life.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start, Jen, with breast cancer.
Okay.
Help us think about what it is, why it's important, what we need to know about screening in today's world, and maybe some situational variables that we might need to consider.
Sure. Well, I don't think I would be remiss without saying that probably a lot of us, I'm generalizing here, have some sort of experience with this. Cancer in general, maybe, but specifically breast cancer for myself. My mom had it. I know we've talked about this before, but your wife has had it in the past and
Twice.
beat it twice. I mean, amazing.
Before the age of 40.
Yeah.
Which kind of flies in the face of some of these recommendations.
Yeah. And
But-
my mom had it in postmenopause, which is a whole other issue. So 2 ends of the spectrum there. But it's, as you alluded to before, the most common cancer in women in the United States. So it beats out lung, probably ovarian, those type of cancers. About 13% of all women will be diagnosed in their lifetime. That's a lot of women.
No, I mean, I think we need to think about that. I
yeah.
mean, what does that mean in English?
It's
It
not
means
insignificant.
1 to 2 women in every cluster of 10
Mm-hmm.
in her lifetime will have the diagnosis of breast cancer that she's going to have to manage.
Yeah,
It's a big deal.
it is. And the number of new cases last year alone was around 290,000.
290,000
New cases.
new cases.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot.
It's a lot of humans.
And 43,000 deaths from breast cancer last year alone. So, those ended in an unfortunate situation. And as you said, about 1 in 3, all new female cancers, about 30% or 1 in 3 are breast cancer. So this is a big deal.
Yeah, so if a woman's going to get cancer,
Mm-hmm.
1 in 3 new cancers in women is breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, answering the question, why is this important?
Yeah.
Because it is.
And you have to wonder or ask yourself, is this because our screening is more prevalent and better? It kind of gets better every year. I hope so. I mean, when we talk about cancer, whatever cancer it may be, and we talked about this when we did the last cancer episode, is timing is everything. If you can catch this early and when it's treatable, your odds of beating it and outliving it are much greater. So even more important to get your screening tests and get them on time and make sure you follow through with them.
Yeah, I suppose there are potentially different perspectives one could have on screening. but I can only speak for me, us,
Mm-hmm.
in the way that we practice. Our North Star is to help our patients live as long a life as possible
Mm-hmm.
at the highest level possible.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk a lot about cancer. We talk a lot about heart disease. We talk a lot about dementia. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because those are three of the biggest reasons that people leave the earth. And that just happens to be aligned with what our goals are, that we need to have some thought around these three things. And in the bucket of cancer, as a female, this is just the point of view of one guy. I don't think there's a more important conversation to be having
Right.
than breast cancer,
Mm-hmm.
given how prevalent it is. And although you could debate, yeah, well, we're diagnosing more, does that really change any outcome? The bottom line is 40, how many thousand?
43?
43,000 women lost their life last year to breast cancer.
These are wives. These are moms. These are sisters. These are,
And these numbers aren't going down.
right.
Now, certainly better screening, we're going to see new cases, numbers going up.
Mhm.
But the hope is that,
The mortality goes down.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
Because as with all cancers, certainly the three that we're going to talk about today, timing is the game.
Mm-hmm.
Speed to a diagnosis gives you opportunity to evaluate, think, and explore optionality that, if done appropriately, should dramatically improve the outcomes
Mm-hmm.
of the journey.
Yeah.
When you're late, all that means is you have to make decisions in a tighter runway.
Mm-hmm.
And for many women, and any cancer that's found late, there's just no runway,
Yeah.
which means you have a bad outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to find cancer, but finding it early is absolutely, if you're going to have it in your life, you want lots of runway to know how to think about it.
Yeah.
What do women need to know about screenings that are available today for them,
Well,
just at a high level?
The most available and obviously is a screening mammogram, covered by insurance, takes very little time, really low cost to you. So that's an amazing benefit of that. Basically, it's an X-ray picture of your breast, and will show any tumors or abnormalities lurking there. It's a great place to start. Should anything suspicious come from that, then we move on to more of a diagnostic mammogram, possibly a biopsy, maybe even a breast MRI. It just kind of depends. If you have very dense breasts, sometimes a breast MRI will give us a better picture of what's going on. And they also
Younger, dense breasts.
And they also have 3D mammograms now. That's the one that I choose to get annually. It's done at different arc levels with the technology, and it shows more of a 3D picture of the breast, a little bit more detailed. So that's becoming more common now too. But the time frames for screening, it's interesting, and we will link this document. But they're, and we kind of talked about it in the last podcast too. But they're all over the board. So we have American Cancer Society, we have American Association of Family Physicians, we have the CDC, we have all of these
Radiology.
Yeah.
Everybody has an opinion on how often you should do these things.
And this is, again, where we differ in our practice, where we're not doing population health. We can use these guidelines to help us with your family history, with your specific situation, determine when we should start these mammograms. But ideally, typically we say annually starting at age 40. We can look and say, are you average risk? Are you high risk? If you're more average or high risk, say you've had a family member that had breast cancer early, like before 30, you want to start those mammograms earlier.
Yeah. Generally 10 years earlier
Yep.
than the youngest diagnosed family member.
Correct.
So if you had a mom or an aunt who had breast cancer at 38, in your late 20s, you need to be starting these screenings.
Yeah. And other risk factors. Are you a smoker? Are you obese? Are you, do you have the BRCA genes? BRCA genes is what we call them for short. But some women know this. They know this about their family history. They know this about their personal history. So that puts you at a higher risk, and you really need to start thinking proactively and getting these screenings a little bit earlier.
What about self-breast exam? Where are we at with that?
I don't know. I think the jury's out with that. I still feel that they're valuable. I feel, but the good thing about the mammogram is that it can detect a smaller growing cancer or smaller cancer up to 3 years before you can actually feel it. So, I mean, I think they're valuable. What's your opinion on them?
I'm not qualified to give an official opinion. I can just tell you how I think about it. In head-to-head against some of these fancy imaging, I don't think it holds a candle.
Correct.
But my wife doing her own self-breast exam saved her life twice. She was first diagnosed at 36, I believe. I mean, she's 4 years from insurance saying it's okay to pay for a mammogram. I'd be without a wife. A large part of me believes that she probably wouldn't have even lived to be 40 had we followed standard guidelines. But thank goodness she's self-aware, she's body aware, she noticed something different, and we took action early. And we got some pretty shocking news. And then we get through that, and then we find she found it again, and we're like, there's no way. And then it was bad news again. So I'm biased. I think they're most useful in people who either aren't getting routine mammogram imaging or fall outside of the standard begin these imaging studies at this age. I think they're far more, they're better than not.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of false positives because a lot of women have lumpy, bumpy, kind of fibrocystic kind of breast tissue, especially if you're a former athlete and you've been bumped around. You've got so you may go chasing some things. So they're not without something that need to be managed. There's some downside to doing a lot of these, and then a lot of needless biopsies and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, I'm not here to say that everybody needs to do them and they're the holy grail. I'm just saying they have their place.
It was similar with my mom. I cannot remember the age that she was diagnosed, in her early 50s, but she was getting dressed and just felt something weird, like up around her armpit. And that's not an area that they even saw on a mammogram. So she just found this lump. You know, it was detectable on ultrasound, but not mammogram, which is weird. But she's alive today because of that.
I would say if you're listening to this and you consider yourself pretty body aware, and a relatively reliable historian of your own health and your own journey and your own truth, they're useful. But
I also think we have to mention the men, because men do have breast tissue.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
men are not totally off the hook.
Men are not off the hook, and they can do mammograms on men, believe it or not.
Well, yeah, that's how they find it. They find it the same way.
Yeah. So, you know, again, being body aware and maybe feeling something strange.
Yeah, a man would definitely, the only gateway into that discovery would be an examination or some sort of asymmetry that's noticed by themselves in the mirror or a partner, like, hey, what's that spot? Like, it looks a little weird there. And then you follow with a mammogram and there it is. And we do see that. And it's very dangerous, just like for women. So yeah, men are not completely off the hook. And absolutely, if you have a family history of male breast cancer, you need to be very proactive.